city, which is that we're not allowed to have red upstate New York. For the record, because I get this all the time, because I try to fight to make sure we get blue state senators in our New York State Senate the way we're trying to get Tracy into Congress, when they say, well, you can't have an all Democratic state, and upstate is red. And I always say, well, all your electeds do seem to be Republicans, but all you do is tell me how everything's going wrong. I don't think they've done a very good job for you. For decades and decades and decades, they've been in control for upstate New York, and you're the parts of the state that have the biggest problems and need the most help. So why don't we start with getting you blue elected officials, and we can all work together to accomplish what we know is needed for the state of New York. So I am really delighted to be here for Tracy, because I know that, first off, I know that nationally a blue Congress is critical for the future of the planet. I'm not just talking New York or America. We've got to make sure that we are saving the planet from the current policies being sent out or spewed or even vomited out of Washington lately. I won't even talk about environmental policy because I could just stop after saying environmental policy. So we need a blue Congress. But also, New York State needs blue representation, because I'm serious. If you look at all the economic problems you see in various parts of the state, all the failed and lost opportunity in upstate New York, and you trace it back to why is that happening, it's usually because of Republican policies at the federal and at the state level. So I know that upstate New Yorkers, even if they haven't yet met Tracy, actually need her and others like her to be representing them in Washington. Now I also know, because I do a lot of work for state Senate candidates around the state, that people are always telling me, oh, Democrats can't win up here. Oh, the Republicans have more money. Oh, what the hell are you talking about? Well, Tracy, I think, is a perfect example of what I have seen happen in races at different points in time all over the state of New York. One, she'll get outspent. Actually, I feel like saying to the Democrats, we always get outspent. We always get outspent like 4-1. That doesn't mean you can't win. As long as you have enough money to get your message out, you can win. So when people say, oh, her opponent, whose name won't be mentioned, has so much money because he's in Republican leadership. No, she needs your money. That's why we're here tonight. But she doesn't need to compete dollar for dollar with him. And I've learned that she already raised $600,000 just since the primary. And more tonight, right, Ben? We'll give it to you next. And she has 1,300 volunteers. That's mind-boggling. And that is also how Democrats win and move red to blue. It's not just did you have the fanciest TV commercials. It is having people who know other people, door knocking and writing dear neighbor letters and showing up at schools and supermarkets. We go to the subways and the bus stops here. You probably don't go to the subways to meet voters. But actually having a core team of 1,300 volunteers, it does two things. One, it really means you've got boots on the ground. But two, it reflects how well you are thought of in your district. The fact that there are 1,300 people willing to come out for you and do really hard work of volunteering on campaigns. And so that also is a critical component of success. And three, there's apparently some data out there showing that your numbers just keep going up while your opponent's numbers are going down. Now, that's all, yeah. And in case anyone here was asleep on Thursday when we had the primary, there's a blue wave here going on in New York. All right? People are voting. People are angry about the status quo. They're demanding change. There's movement of insurgency in every imaginable direction, and it's true in New York City, and it's true in upstate New York. And that is going to continue through the November elections. So I am very excited. I confess, I didn't know Tracy until tonight. A mutual friend who's an assemblywoman in Ithaca, Barbara Lifton, reached out to me and said, "We love her, you have to help her down there." I was like, "Okay, Barbara." Just like Barbara tells you to do things, it's probably better to do it. Right, exactly. And so I'm really honored that I could be here and say a few words on your behalf, and I really do. Who's the host? Who owns this apartment? This is an amazing, apartment. Wow. Who imagined to look like this in here? Excellent. And you know what? It's really nice to get to know you. I'm always looking for people with apartments. I'm going to be sorry. Now I scared away the host. But I'm now going to hand it not to Tracy, but to Ben, who is, I'm told, like an additional child in her family. I know him as the fundraising guy. So what's better than family members raising? So thank you all for everything you're doing for Tracy.
Thank you so much, Senator Kruger, for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. So as Liz mentioned, I am here in a dual capacity tonight. On one hand, I am Tracy's finance director, but for the sake of these brief remarks, I am here as Tracy's adopted son in a metaphorical sense. Tracy was my professor in college 10 years ago, and I remember meeting her when I was a freshman in college, and I was just so impressed by the way she could command a room, her deep insights into policy, and how she could lead a discussion and get people to agree on things. And I took her class my sophomore year, and she asked me to be her teaching assistant my junior year. And the sad part of this story is my mother actually became very ill around this period, passed away in the summer in between taking her class and becoming her teaching assistant. And Tracy just went so far above the call of duty that year when I came back, and really took me into being part of her family. And so when she won the primary in June, and she said, "Ben, I know you're out in Silicon Valley. I'm from the tech industry. Politics is new to me. I know you're out in Silicon Valley, but I think I need your help with the general election. Would you come out and help me?" And I said, "Tracy, you were there for me when I was your student, and now it's my time to be there for you." So with that, I'd like to introduce my surrogate mother and boss, Tracy Mitrano.
Genuinely moved by the remarks of both Senator Kruger and Ben, and I'm very, very grateful to see all of you here, because I know that we are united in an effort to see genuine change take place in New York City, in New York State, in Congress, and in this United States. I grew up in Rochester and was very grateful to go on to college after I spent years behind my father's bar. Those of you who were here for the wine tasting heard that portion of the biography. And after college, I earned a doctorate in American history and was a history professor. But I always knew that I wanted to go to law school, not to be an attorney, but because I wanted to be a university administrator. I was so grateful for the opportunity to go to college and change the quality of my life. I wanted to make sure that that opportunity remained for every generation after me. And consequently, I did go to law school and did some social policy work, but then took a very interesting turn, and in the last 15 years have worked in information technology policy and cybersecurity. The reason I share all of this is to say that along the way, I have watched the restrictions strangling access to higher education. And now everyone knows, because it's been reported and it's being reported widely, what I've been watching for many years. The highest debt ratio that we have in this country is for student debt. It's $1.5 trillion. How many of you here have student debt that you're carrying or have children or grandchildren? It's usurious at 6 to 12% interest rates. You can get a mortgage for 4 or 5. You can get a car for 2 or 3. What we are doing in this country, and this is just one but very keen example, of allowing money to push the pen of Congress so that when something like the Higher Education Reauthorization Act comes up, no one is standing up for the student. No one is standing up for the person who didn't have an opportunity to go to college except to get loans, such as was the experience myself. But now you're carrying this tremendous debt afterwards and for decades after you have already finished your degree. I could give you many examples. I bet you could tell me many examples. But a woman in Steuben County said 20 years ago, she was about 40, I took out a $20,000 loan. I've now paid $60,000 and I'm still not out of debt with it. $20,000 is a very modest amount of money in higher education. And so the idea that she remains in debt is just a story that speaks to the story of so many people. Why are we allowing big money to control Congress? If, God willing, I am elected and I had a magic wand, the first thing I would do is campaign finance reform. Yeah. Because money is corrupting politics. And it has been so particularly disadvantageous for a district such as the one where I come from. I grew up in Western New York, but I have lived in the Finger Lakes and the Southern Tier part of the state my entire adult life. And coincidentally, this district goes from Western New York all the way down just west of Binghamton. So I feel very at home to speak about the people and the experiences of my area. And I can tell you, we've been left behind. We have been severely neglected by the kind of leadership that is bought and sold by money, by big corporate money. Mr. Reed hardly has but $60,000 of his $2.2 million comes from people within the district. Let me share with you, I have raised more money from more people in this district than Mr. Reed has all 4 of his terms and more than any other Democratic candidate who has gone because it is a poor district neglected by a congressman who, while he may come from the district, is entirely driven in his voting record by the commands of his donors. Let me give you some of the base examples, and these are the 3-4 biggest issues that we face in the 23rd. Healthcare. Doesn't matter if it's a farmer, a gas station attendant, a student, someone who has healthcare, but still recognizes the drag that the failure to get to where this country needs to be in healthcare continues to be for people all around this district and all around this country. We must find an affordable and effective and efficient mode of healthcare. Right now, it would appear to be a single-payer system, but the main thing that we have to do is drive those healthcare costs down, drive the cost of drugs down, and let's move in a direction that this country needs so we can get on to the other things that are hurting people all around this country and in this district. I've already spoken about education at the higher education level, but let me also share with you, there are savage inequalities, to take the term of a wonderful book, if anyone has ever read it. I used to teach it until it would make me cry, and it wasn't kind of the best thing that you want your professor to be doing. But we have them in the 23rd District, and I'm sure you have them here in New York City. There are some parts, Ithaca and Corning, great AP courses, great direction to do the kind of training that people need to get jobs in a 21st century corporation such as Corning. But if you're in Olean or Friendship or Bolivar or in Asheville, these are all little towns throughout the district. I could go on and name many more. You are not having those same opportunities. And it is very unlikely through cycles of poverty and family connections that you are going to get those opportunities unless you make a very radical break in your background. Let me share a little bit more about what I mean, just in a stark number. 40% of children across the district receive free and reduced lunch. When you do the math on that and compare it to statistics for poverty in this country, it comes to about 50% of people in the 23rd district are around the poverty level. And I'm sure you know that that becomes a generational grind into which it is very, very difficult to move without the government being there to do what the government is supposed to do. It has a responsibility to make sure that there are healthy people in this country. It has a responsibility to educate people as equally as could possibly be arranged. And it has a responsibility to be sure that they have access to higher education if they want to move on into those areas. And definitely they should and need to be trained for jobs in the 21st century. Those are not the conditions that we have in the 23rd district. Those are not the conditions we have in New York City, if I may say. And those are not the conditions we have in this country. Because the 23rd district is a metaphor for what's going on all around the United States. And to add on to that, we do not have the infrastructure that we need and is necessary, again, for people to make a step. The roads are poor. The transportation doesn't exist. People sometimes tell me, oh, native-born people, they don't want to work in the agriculture here. I don't know if they do or don't. They don't have any way to get there to go to the job. They don't have a way to get to libraries. They don't have a way to get to the community college. So when you start adding up the impediments placed before people, 50% who are around the poverty level, and you stop and think, who's responsible for this? I'm sorry, I'm not a democratic socialist, and I may disappoint some people for me to say that, but I firmly believe that the government has a role in being sure it has healthy people, educated people, and it has the proper infrastructure that allows for the freedom that people need to go to school, go to work, go to a library, visit friends, have a community. There was a woman in Tioga County shared with me how difficult it was for her to get to her medical appointments and to demonstrate the kind of disconnect that exists. One of the gentlemen I was with, and I swear he meant it seriously, said, why don't you call Uber? There's no internet. And she doesn't have a smartphone. She's not in the, but this is the kind of disconnect that we have that I do believe government can step in and help and fix. Finally, let me speak briefly about the environment. In this district, we have three principal environmental challenges. One is fracking. Thank God Governor Cuomo has acted on the health care order such that we have a ban on fracking, and that was a saving grace for an area like the 23rd district. If you're a little familiar with geology, you'll know that this district is on top of the Marcellus shale that is otherwise supposed to be very replete with these resources that exploitative fossil fuel companies want to get in and take out. Thank God we have that ban. I would stand in Congress for making an anti-fracking federal across the board. It is not the right method, it is not good for health, and it does despoil the environment. The next step is water quality issues, which are becoming profound around this country and are in our district because we are blessed with so much natural fresh water. The Great Lakes, the Finger Lakes, Chautauqua Lake, the Genesee River, Allegheny River, Susquehanna River. Every single waterway has this algae bloom that's actually a bacteria that in concentrations and in certain types emits a toxin that is detrimental to all animal health. Some dogs have actually even died going into those areas. We must address this issue around the country and bring together federal resources with state and local to address it for New York City and for the 23rd district. In closing, let me simply say this. If you want economic development, which we need desperately in the 23rd district, It's not going to come from a jobs plan. It's not going to come from an enterprise zone or a few tax credits. It's going to come when you have healthy people, educated and trained people, when you have the proper infrastructure, and when you are having appropriate stewardship of your abundant natural resources. That's when you're attractive. That's when new investment will want to come to you and invest. Please help me get to Congress so I can help the people of the 23rd District. And please help the United States come to make sense about its national politics. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the student loan talk. The crushing burden that
Yes.
I took 5 years ago, just starting to make it down to the principal.
Yep.
Several $1,000s a month is ridiculous.
Yes.
It is usurious.
Yes.
My question is related to more like the federal judiciary.
Yeah.
As you know, Congress has a lot of power over the federal judiciary. And this is going to sound kind of like a law, it's really hypothetical question.
Okay.
But if investigators were to conclude that the president or members of this campaign committed crimes, and I'm not talking about whatever, collusion or obstruction, not obstruction, but like serious crimes that go to the integrity of the election and really put that into question.
Yeah.
What do you think Congress can and should do about that? And I'm talking about how this answer.
Yeah, well, I think it's almost completely settled law not to bring a case against a sitting president,
Right, I'm not talking
with
about
the exception of impeachment. And, I mean, if we can impeach a president for, what came up under President Clinton, it certainly seems to me that if the evidence is there of some of these other potential criminal acts related to the campaign, then it would be up to Congress to bring that forth under the rules of impeachment. And as you know, the House impeaches and then the